Hello and welcome to the first episode, recording, video, whatever we're going to call this, the first official one. And today we're going to start with the very first part of the wedding planning process, which is right after you get engaged. So let's say you just put the ring on your finger, you're starting to announce to family and friends. What do you do next? So, number one is making sure that as you make those announcements to family and friends, that you're not missing anybody that's not on social media or that would prefer to hear it straight from you. I'm sure by the time you're listening to this video, you probably already shared the news, but make sure that there's not anybody you're forgetting that's not on social media or that needs to hear the message straight from you. We don't want any hurt feelings there, and it's good to just think about people that would rather hear it from you rather than through the grapevine. So number two would be to start deciding on your wedding date. And a few things to thinking about that is number one, how long do you want to have your engagement period be? How long do you want to have to plan your wedding? So how far in the future? Number two, what season do you want to get married in? Do you have a preference if it's winter, spring, fall, summer? And then also, you don't have to get married on a weekend. If you want a specific date that's meaningful to the two of you, then you don't have to worry about if it's on a Saturday or Sunday. Feel free to choose a weekday. In fact, a lot of vendors might actually appreciate it. Some offer weekday discounts, and you'll find that you'll have more availability and therefore more vendors to choose from if you have a weekday wedding because they're not easily as booked up. Adam and I had originally had planned on having a weekday wedding, and our family talked us out of it. And I sometimes regret that. So I always share that with couples to truly make it your own, pick the date that you want, and just go for it. People will make it work. Number three is to decide how large you want your wedding. And that takes into a few things. First, your budget, and two, your guest count list. Obviously, more guests is more money. So those two are pretty related. Do you imagine yourself in a really intimate setting where all of your family and friends are sitting at one table and it's more private? Or do you imagine that big traditional wedding where you guys are all dancing on the dance floor afterwards? Either way, you'll need to decide on those things before you can move forward. Before you can decide on a venue, you'll need to know how much space you need for how many people. So number four is to consider hiring a wedding planner. Now, I know as we talk about budget that maybe that sounds like just another vendor to add to your payroll, right? But in fact, a wedding planner, they have so many great resources and access to vendors for all budgets and all guest list sizes that usually a wedding planner can actually end up saving you money. So rather than them just being another item on your budget, they can be an asset to you. And I would recommend if you're struggling to figure out how to work within your budget and still get the wedding that you want, to hire a wedding planner. They can help you with that. They're used to working with budgets of all sizes. And especially if you're from out of town and your wedding is here in North Carolina as a destination wedding, definitely hire a wedding planner. They can be that middle person for you when you're not able to be here in person, talking with vendors and being your coordinator there. I'm going to go into more detail in another episode later on why wedding planners are amazing and why I always recommend one to all my couples. Number five is to start looking at those venues. Now that you have an idea of your budget and how big you want your wedding to be, then you're going to be able to start envisioning where you want it to be. Some things to think about. Do you have a lot of guests coming from out of town and they're going to need a place to stay? What kind of vibe do you guys want? Do you want a more rustic, country, laid back? Do you want high end or downtown Asheville? So just to start imagining the type of space that you guys can see yourself celebrating your day in. Picking your wedding venue is also another topic that I'm going to break down in the future, looking at it from a photographer's perspective, because there's different areas of a venue to think about. Your getting ready space, the ceremony site, portrait locations, and the reception. So be looking for that in the future as well. And number six is to hire your wedding photographer. Of course, I'm going to say that, but in all honesty, it's not unusual for wedding photographers to book 18 months out, sometimes even 2 years. That's a little bit less heard of, 2 years, but 12 to 18 months is generally when wedding photographers are starting to book. So you need to reach out to them as soon as you've decided on a date, especially if there's one that you know you want to work with. Um, if you don't have a photographer in mind already, I would start with recommendations from family and friends so that you know that they've had firsthand experience with them and you know that they're going to be a good resource for you. And also, if you are working with a wedding planner, they're going to be able to have a great list of photographers that they've worked with in the past and they know and love, and they know that they produce good work. Again, I am going to go into more detail about hiring your wedding planner in the future, but this was just kind of a quick overview of the first 6 things to start thinking about right after you get engaged. Number 1 is telling your family, making sure you're not missing anybody that's not on social media. Number 2 was to start thinking about your date and realizing that it doesn't have to be on a weekend, thinking about what season you want it to be in, and how much time you want to have for planning your wedding. Number 3, how large do you want your wedding to be? And that takes into account your budget as well as your guest list. Number 4, start thinking about if you want to hire a wedding planner that can help you with your budget, help you with your vision becoming a reality. Number 5 is to start looking at venues. Where can you imagine yourselves celebrating your special day together? And number 6, hiring your wedding photographer, because they do book really far in advance. So there you have it, the first 6 things to start thinking about after you get engaged. Thanks so much, and be on the lookout for the next ones to come.